Hey everyone, welcome to JP's Budget Collecting and another episode of Gotham City Chronicles. With me, as always, is Comic Books NYC. Kami, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? I'm back on YouTube.
Yeah,
What's going on?
So,
Not much. I just, I'm in that post back to work, like body clock shock today. Like I'm going half speed. So if this show takes 45 minutes, I don't even know what I was talking about. I was going to say 90 minutes instead of 45 minutes. That's why.
Well, let's not, because our guest tonight, Alec from Whitewell Comics.
There he is.
I figured, JP, you got a backwards hat.
Oh,
you got a force.
You're balancing the force.
Yeah, I'm the balance of the force here.
Yes, that's good. I like that one.
So, but I know he had somewhere to be, like in an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, he's got
I got another stream.
He's got a mystery box to open.
So we'll try to get him out of here on time.
A different kind of mystery box to open.
Oh yeah.
But right now, we're talking about Batman books.
That's right.
Batman books. And tonight we're talking about Gotham Central, Volume 1 by Brubaker and Rucka. And this was
and Michael Lark.
Oh yeah, and
That's
Michael
right.
Lark.
Even though it says "with" on the cover, even though he's the artist.
Yeah, that's kind of lame.
This is kind of lame.
I got the fifth. I got that fifth printing, that hot fifth printing variant.
I have the hardcover.
Oh, you got the hardcover.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
You're special.
Yeah, which was, I don't know if it still is, but was very hard to find for a while.
Interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. So
First
me
printing.
and NYC was actually the first time either of us had read this particular story. So I'd always heard good things, but Alec was like, "You should read this for Chronicles." The cat just like fell off the desk.
I remember you. Alec did this show with like Jasper Nicola or something.
Yeah.
Or something. I forget his name. How do you say his name?
Yeah, I haven't seen him around lately. I don't know if he's
because I watched that, and I think it was like you guys were focusing on stuff that like people may not have heard of or read that
and he
we're
picked like a really cool issue of Daredevil.
Yeah. And you talked about this, so I remember that from back then.
John's Comics with Kids calls it the anti-Batman book.
The anti-Batman. Batman's in it at least a couple times. Unlike Black Mirror, which we did cover on this show, where he's not in it at all. So.
I wouldn't really call this the anti-Batman book because it definitely I'm sure we'll touch on it, but there's a lot of things that kind of not more than reference. They kind of depend on the fact that Batman exists.
Yeah. Stuff like that. And it is interesting, the interplay of how they perceive him, like as you go through this, like how the detectives and how they think about him at different points of cases and that kind of stuff. And
they're still dealing with Batman villains too.
Yeah.
So I want to shout out the chat here real quick. Just Rican was in here early and he is back. Hey Rod, what's going on, my friend? John has been in here hanging out. We got Unruly Simeon. What's going on, Unruly? Always in my life. Thank you so much. The boy who had 7. I think he has a show later that's going on. Something maybe.
I've heard about something maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, something. And Perry Comics. What's going on, Perry? Congrats on 1,000 again to Mr. Perry. He finally hit that this weekend. So.
Nice, Perry. Congrats, dude.
And the Comic Collector is also in the chat. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Comic Head 84 is in the chat. What's up, Ken?
Oh, well, my StreamYard's behind.
Oh,
I haven't seen 84 yet. So, shocking. My StreamYard chat is behind. Oh, there he is.
There he goes.
So,
nice job, Stream Duck.
Yeah, come on, Stream Duck. You got to do better. So normally we start usually by just talking about the art and of this. So, Alec, you want to start just kind of your thoughts on Michael Lark's art for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think he is. I mean, I like this type of style generally, anyway. But I think he's perfectly suited for the tone of the book. Like, I don't think you'd want like a Jim Lee or someone like.
It had that grittiness,
Right.
I liked it.
It adds to the story rather than works oppositely for it. I mean, but I understand like it's clearly not everyone's style, because it's very much like it's like kind of a poor man's Marcos Martin, which
Okay.
I mean,
yeah,
I not take anything away from Michael Lark because I think he does an excellent job, but Marcos Martin to me is like a master, so that's why I say poor man's, not because he does a bad impression of him.
Right. I will say, like, there's parts of this that I absolutely love the way his style fits the story, and then there's parts of it, and NYC, and I talked about this actually before you hopped in, where it's like it's like I wish it was a little. I feel like
there's a bit of a learning curve to it all.
yes,
like you're like I think by like issue 3, and this is a 10-issue volume, right? So there are 10 issues covered in this Gotham Central first volume, and for the first like 2 to 3 issues, I was having a little bit of a struggle to like separating which cop was which and stuff, especially when they had the same skin tone. I was like, wait a minute, who's that again? You know, and I was struggling a little, but by like issue 4, I was okay.
Yeah, I do feel like I had the same trouble of like generic white cop that we don't spend a lot of time with. Which one is he again?
I think it was Nate, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. The funny thing is that I feel like a lot of artists fall victim to this, of just like drawing a specific face, but the issue that services him very well in certain points fails him in this point, which other artists who may do this, it doesn't happen as much, is that his style is very loose and doesn't focus a lot on specific detail. Right. So you kind of lose something like that, whereas someone like a Jim Lee may draw all the faces the same, but he can draw like something specific on the character that lets you know that it's them, like a piece of clothing or like a scar, or like a smile lines or something, even though their face is structurally just the same face drawn.
Well, and I think this struggles a little bit because there's so many new characters introduced here. Like,
right,
it isn't like your traditional Batman's gallery that you know what they look like, you know who, because there's no, for the most part, no Jim Gordon, there's no Harvey Bullock.
Right. I mean, they're kind of
they're spoken of, but
other than Montoya and maybe Sawyer, like these aren't really characters you've ever aren't familiar with, so it makes it harder when his style doesn't make it as easy to tell them apart.
Yeah.
But for me, this is like even the story that turned Renee Montoya into like a real character in the comic.
100%. 100%.
Yes.
So even like when this came out, you couldn't really necessarily say that for Renee Montoya.
Right.
Yeah, she was more.
Yeah. She had the strongest. She had the strongest overall character arc in this entire volume.
The way he draws Batman, I think, is awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like just like this huge black cape, and it very much like sells the idea and the like fear and the mysteriousness of Batman to me.
Unruly asked, well, is this really a Bats book then? I mean, it's arguably a Gotham book. It's a Gotham book. I would have a hard time putting it, like, I know we do like how we rate the story or rank it the end, but I look at it differently. I look at it like Gotham universe story. Batman does show up and is involved and has a couple crucial moments in the story, but those aren't the takeaways I have from the story. The takeaways I have are all these new characters that I got to know through the story.
Right. I mean, I alphabetize it with my Batman stuff.
Yeah. So do I.
Separate stuff like that, like, because I'm a weirdo.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like a Batman focused book, but it certainly is a Gotham book, and it has all of it has Mr. Freeze, it has Firebug, it has Batman, it has Jim Gordon. Like, even though they're not the focus of the story, they're still there. So to me, it still feels very much like a Bat book.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
I would agree with that. And
he looms large throughout the entire plot.
Yeah, basically. For sure. Even when he's not on camera.
Yeah.
Per se. They're still they reference him a lot more than you see him.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they spend a lot of time, and we're kind of jumping away from the art, but they spend a lot of time, and what I find interesting is the cops discussing their perspective on him.
Yeah.
And how they don't want him to be involved, and yet they understand his necessity at times, and they
They have mixed feelings. They have mixed feelings.
Yeah, they have mixed feelings about him.
They can't really stop the kind of baddies he can stop on a regular basis, and therefore they understand why he's constantly called in. But they also feel that any time he's called in, they're being brushed to the side, and they're not really being given a chance to actually solve this case or stop this bad guy or whatever. But yeah, that's an awesome Batman silhouette right there.
Yeah, his cool. Batman, when he does use him, is really, really good.
Yeah.
So that is, referencing the fact that Batman is in the story, and the fact that going back to the art, and like I was saying, I really like the way he draws Batman. I'm trying to find another panel that I really like of his, but
yeah, I really like the way he draws Renee also. Personally.
Yeah, even here's one with Batman. Robin and Killer Croc, which is really cool.
Oh yeah, I forgot that even happens.
That is an excellent. Like, do you think he does, like, for being kind of a loose style, like, he does these sequences, these action sequences, like where they're chasing the kids, like through the alley and up the thing, and like he does a really good job of just laying that out and having progression in his action. Like, his art does a good job of portraying the action.
Yeah.
Like that?
Yes. Here, let me make you big again.
Yeah.
You see him flying away on the other page there.
Yeah. Comic Head says it gives him a Jorge
Fornes
vibe, and I would agree with that. Like, because he's done some of the recent Batman stuff, and I would agree they kind of similar styles.
Yeah, it's funny because it's kind of scratchy, it's kind of loose, but it's clearly very intentional where he decides to put those brush strokes and those lines. Like he it is kind of a looser style than a lot of stuff you see, but like it doesn't mean that it's just like thrown together. It's clearly very thought out.
He does a lot of these kind of like interstitial like panels of Gotham. Sometimes the bat signal's in it, sometimes it isn't. I really like those. I really like those panels. I think they really just add
establishing
cool
shots, something that people don't use in comics very much for some reason.
Yeah.
But like if you don't use them in a movie, people flip out, but leave them out of a comic.
Right, like just an establishing of the shot, like it's like a movie in the way that it's paneled and paged. It's pretty cool.
Unruly Simeon said, who's the artist? It is Michael Lark.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kitty agrees.
Has he done? I mean, I haven't done much research on him. Like, what else he's done? Do you guys know?
I don't know a lot else that he's done.
I don't either.
Mazzucchellian. That's a great use of that name.
Yeah.
And I would have to kind of.
Yeah,
I get some year one
vibes. Yeah.
While reading this a little bit in some of those panels.
Definitely, and but it doesn't feel like. Again, it doesn't feel like he's ripping anyone off. It's clearly a very his own style, but it's influenced by a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
And and we talked about like the faces, but and then you'll get a panel like this, if I can get it to focus, and they're all really well done, and you could tell who's who and that kind of stuff. It's just more of the generic when it flash in and out, but sometimes it's harder to be like, oh, who's who and what's going on, and like that's an excellent scene with everybody, with a bunch of people in it, and they're all really well done. It's just kind of, I just found it a little uneven, I guess, for me. But like when it's good, it's fantastic, and when it's not, it's like,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think overall I am impressed with the artwork. It's just that learning curve that I alluded to earlier was kind of my biggest drawback, where I should have probably gone back and reread those first 3 issues, but I was like determined to continue, And I was like, so then from that point onward, I wasn't sure which detective exactly
had done what,
and I had to catch up to that.
It was easy for a while with the one guy had the bandages on his hands.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. That was Silver, right? Or no?
Fields.
What was the last name?
Fields.
Fields, yes, Fields. And the other guy was the one who Freeze murdered. Yeah, his partner.
Which, by the way, are we talking about story yet?
Yeah,
I think we're ready. We usually just kind of cover the art, but we can start talking about the stories. And there's really, like NYC said, there's like 2.5 stories.
2.5 stories, kind of.
Like there's like a Freeze story, there's a Firebug story, and then there's the Montoya story, like which is truly the second story, I guess.
Right, and the Montoya story has Two-Face involvement in kind of a, like, I don't even know, left field kind of way a little bit, but
yeah, we'll get there. Let's go through the first ones a little bit.
Comic Head said, "Are any Batman rogues in it, or is it mostly mob type baddies?" They pretty much like exclusively fight rogues.
Batman rogues. Yeah.
I mean, this is about the MCU, the Major Crimes Unit, and these are the guys. Which what I found really interesting in the story,
not the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
the MCU.
Yeah, sorry, not the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That they're fighting the guys that Batman are. These are the cops that kind of rely on Batman the most, yet they're also the best of what Gotham has.
Right.
So their pride is there's always this, like, even amongst themselves, the discussion of their pride as police officers and doing a good job, and yet the need for assistance from the Bat. Yeah. And like, I think they do a really good job of balancing that and making that a realistic discussion if they were dealing with something like that, because they're like, we don't want to call him, and yet
it felt real. Like if you were a cop and you were super proud of like your job and your role in protecting citizens and whatnot, and every time a case comes up, you're kind of cut off, by Batman. I would get frustrated.
Yeah, but interestingly, you say it's about more so about the rogues, and it's true, but the first story starts out with them just investigating a kidnapping, and they kind of happen across Mr. Freeze. They're not like, and then it turns into them trying to catch Mr. Freeze. But I think they do that balance really well, where it's like even the second story is about the kidnapping, and the Firebug kind of rolls into it
just by happenstance,
because that's what the crime is in Gotham.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, were you surprised at all at how kind of dark and gritty and gruesome the first issue kind of starts out as, coming at this as a Batman book?
Not really. I mean,
I don't know if I was surprised, but I guess I appreciated it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really, I do think it was, I guess, because you don't see, like, Mr. Freeze freezes a lot of people, and you don't see the end result of that very often.
Right. You don't see him breaking off people's ears
breaking off people's ears and breaking them into,
and literally having
eventually breaking them
parts of his body in different parts of the room.
So. But I do feel like it was an excellent way to set the tone of what this is. Like, this is very much a cop. Like, these guys see this kind of stuff. They're seeing the aftermath.
And it's not, and you read something like a Batman and no one ever really gets hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
But like in the first couple of pages of this, a detective dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally in like the first, 3 pages? Maybe 4 pages?
Yeah. And his partner is also injured but survives, and then is determined to sort of do this without Batman. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and he's kind of driving this forward, and then that leads into the second case. And the second case kind of has a resolvement, right? Like, I feel like that's where there's a clear separation of the first arc and the second arc. The second arc is more about Montoya. Is that a different shift? Because I mean,
Montoya and Fields are on different shifts.
Montoya and Shields are on different shifts, and we were talking a little bit about this earlier, but Greg Rucka, who is the other writer, because this is actually written by Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka, so they co-wrote the book, and apparently they split up the writing duties based on what shift the cops were on. Like, certain cops are on the 12-hour day shift, and the other cops are on the 12-hour night shift, and they actually divvied up those writing duties, and it seemed pretty cohesive to me. I didn't feel like there were two writers writing it to me.
No.
Yeah, I mean, they have very similar styles, so it doesn't surprise
Yeah.
me.
That was really well done. So kudos to them.
Yeah, but like the first 5 issues, I guess, it is two. You look at it kind of like 2 cases because it's 2 rogues, but
it's one case really, because
all the case about the kidnapped girl.
Yeah, because that was why they went to that. They followed a lead, right?
Right.
They bumped into Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Mr. Freeze thing just kind of interrupted basically this kidnapping case.
Yeah.
That they were working on, and then there was also this firebug thing that was going on to the side, and it all kind of pulls together as you move through the story. But it's really well done, and the fact that and then when it leads into the second one, they shift to Montoya, but it's also because the detective on the first one, that's the focus, Fields, basically goes on leave after he wraps up the kidnapping thing.
Yeah.
Because his partner was killed, and so he takes some time. So it's just the way they pace it and lay out all of these stories that are kind of
they were kind of teasing like a romantic thing with his Romy, I think, is it the cop? Yeah, it was Nate's partner, and then for some reason she got to be his partner while this, since his partner died, and he was still trying to push this case forward or whatever. So they were definitely teasing that, and that was I don't know if that's resolved later. There is a second volume of this, right?
Oh, there's a few, yeah.
There's a few, right? So maybe that, I haven't read those, so. But I kind of want to read the rest of it now.
I do.
Some of these character things that I would like to see what happened to it.
Yeah, I would agree. It intrigued me enough that I definitely will find the time to go read the rest of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Honestly, since it's been so long since I've read the whole thing, I honestly don't remember. But in the end of issue 5, where they kind of are really kind of teasing that romance, it kind of had a Rogue One thing for me, where I was like, oh, you think maybe they're gonna kiss, but they don't, then it's more satisfying that they don't.
Yeah, that's not a bad point.
So real quick, I'm going to shout out the chat. We've had a bunch of people join us here recently. I got issues dropped in. The Immortal Biggie Shack, thank you for hanging out. The Art Chemist, what's going on, man? Samurai Comics, thank you for coming in. Keeps the Dorks, what's going on, Javi? Too Many Comics, thank you everyone for joining us. So I appreciate it.
Big Will has just arrived also.
Big Will has arrived. So, but yeah, I do think I really enjoy if you like cop shows, this is basically
dude. I'm telling you, man. I wish this is what the Gotham TV show was.
Right.
I honestly I was reading this and I was like, damn.
When they announced it, I thought it was going to be this.
Right. That would have been great.
I was psyched, and then what happened came out.
I mean, I'm not going to talk too much trash on the show because I didn't watch it past 10 episodes in or something, or even less maybe. But and I know there are people are fans of that show, so I mean, to each his own. But I didn't enjoy what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, and also a lot of times when you have an expectation of one thing, it turns out to be.
Yeah, that's true.
You kind of just scoff it a little bit. I've never watched it, so I can't say anything about it. But it's not this. I know that.
No, definitely not this. Hulk came in just after I stopped doing shout outs. So
the one thing that I was kind of questioning as far as the police work goes is kind of the main detective Fields. Every time he's questioning someone about the girl's death, he always says, oh, she was killed with a blow to the back of the head. It's you would never tell someone that because you would want to get them to admit. So if you get them to say how she died, I mean, unless it's in the papers, but they haven't really established that. So I thought that was a little, but he just might not be a very good detective, or at least not in that respect. But
should we talk about Montoya a little bit? Because I feel like, let's put in perspective though. What year were these issues coming out? 2005, 2004?
2004, I believe.
Yeah,
2004.
I was going to say probably 15 years ago.
So,
before 2005.
I feel like 15 years ago was kind of approaching that turning point where, it was more okay to have, I don't want to talk politics necessarily, but there were more, what's the phrase? LBTQ, whatever.
LBGTQ.
LBGTQ. There were more characters being introduced in pop culture from that, group. And I don't know a ton about Renee Montoya's like origins or whatever, but this is the first story where I really felt like I got to know her character.
Right.
Period.
Well, this is
so.
I'm again like we said this about something else that I don't remember necessarily, but I'm pretty sure this is where she is kind of outed as being.
It is when she's outed, yeah.
So
this whole story is when she's outed. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, well, I know that's when she's outed, like within the police department, like as a reader.
Oh, as a reader, I think you might be right on that too. Yeah, I don't know that you know that. I don't remember knowing that before. I mean, before she was, as we talked about before, she was really just Bullock's partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the comics, she didn't really play that big of a role, to my recollection. It's been a long time since I've read some of those, but I don't remember her being that important other than she was Bullock's partner.
Right. And you mentioned that back when this came out, it's when a lot of kind of more characters like this were being introduced, but that's because they didn't exist before then.
Right.
This was kind of like the first time that it was acceptable or somewhat accepted that you could write a lesbian character in the police force and it not be like, well, that's absurd.
Right.
Right.
She does become the question. Spoilers for books that came out a long time ago. So yeah, I mean, what did you take away from that, I guess, and how it was portrayed? Or do you not want to touch on this because it's a dicey?
I mean, I thought it was portrayed. I thought it was written very well.
Yeah.
Because you feel for her. You know what I mean? You feel for her in those scenes. You feel for her in that sort of office politics kind of environment. Of the police station, of what's it called, the squad room, right? Yeah. And like when they put up that picture or whatever, and it's escaping me exactly who was the cop that actually did that, but when they put up that picture, that whoever Two-Face hired somebody else to take, private eye photos of her. When that was put up in the squad room, like I felt really like legitimately bad for her character.
Right. I mean, the way I kind of look at it is that, you don't necessarily want your personal life brought up or exposed at work, regardless of what it is.
Right.
And the fact that on top of that, she is, a lesbian. I was going to say a gay person first, because, I think being a lesbian, especially in this line of work, is probably another layer beyond that, where the guys are like really razzing you in a different way.
Yeah.
And probably not as like aggressively hurtful, but like from her perspective, it certainly must be, because it's probably a lot of like sexual harassment and stuff. But so that's like layer upon layer upon layer of just like a slap in the face for her when that picture showed up,
And
right.
I have to say that hit really home for me, because particularly the scene with her brother, because
that was a good scene.
I've been the brother in that scene. I handled it very differently than her brother does, and I've been where seen having to tell a daughter having to tell her parents. Like I've lived that in real life, and all of that resonates well. Like the outcome in my family was very different, but like those moments and that hesitation to tell them, and all of that is real. And like,
especially when you're kind of strong-armed into it like this.
Yeah. Right. Like her hand was forced.
Basically. Her hand was forced, which like I can't even really imagine, because I remember what that was like for my sister, and like to have to come forward with that. And it was, that for me would really kind of hit home in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting when I started reading this.
Yeah, even if I can only imagine, but I have to assume that like, even if you're sure how someone is going to react. It's still going to give you a pit in your stomach before you tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fact that she's like, well, it's going to be in the newspapers, basically. So.
And then, sort of after at least she's okay. She's been exonerated. Two-Face is in Arkham for now, right? Like at the end, and then she does then have to go have that conversation with her parents after they already know. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
right.
is,
but still, you can't just be like.
But you still need to have that conversation, and that was drawn very well. I thought, also from the perspective of what was her name, Daria.
Daria.
Daria. I didn't expect the volume or the whole book, this part of the story anyway, to end so somberly,
Yeah.
I was expecting like some sort of turnaround, and then you know what? It didn't happen, and I was like, you know what? Well, that makes it more real, I think.
Yeah.
Right. I was gonna say, like, it's a crime book. It's about police officers. It's about like hard things that people deal with in real life, and like,
it's never just rosy peaches at the end of the story in real life. Not always.
Like, even when things are great, you look to your left or you look to your right, and something terrible is happening.
Yeah.
Maybe not the worst thing ever, but like there's always a yin and the yang. Like, if anything is purely 100% good, then you're always kind of like left like wondering, well, when's the shoe gonna drop? Like something. This is too good for too long, because like life is ups and downs. And
yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely like, I feel like if they wrapped it up in a nice little bow at the end of this first, even like the end of the first storyline is not like necessarily that great.
No.
The dude's partner is still dead, and now he's like has to face it since he saw, and a girl is dead, a 14-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what cops deal with.
Right.
It felt real.
And I think all of it was just really well paced. There's really, and we're 32 minutes in, and I'm going to get to like my one storytelling complaint of the whole thing.
All right, let's hear it.
The Two-Face thing, and maybe
That's mine also.
Maybe it's set up in their Batman run or something beforehand. But to me, that was completely like left field. I didn't feel like they set that up. That reveal that he's behind all of Montoya.
Right. It could have been any of Batman's rogues that hired a guy or whatever.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like they did a good job of setting that up, other than in the title of the story.
Right.
But there's nothing there to make it like, oh yeah, Two-Face, that makes sense. It's just like, okay, it's Two-Face.
Yeah, like she's talking in the beginning, in the end of the previous issue, she's talking to her partner. What's his name, Crispin? Or Crisper? Yeah. And she's being basically blackmailed, right? Or not blackmailed, framed? Is that the right? Yeah, framed for 2 crimes or something: a murder she didn't commit, and possession of like illegal drugs that she was essentially framed. And all of a sudden, she tells her partner it's Two-Face, and I'm like, what? That to me was the most confusing / surprising. I don't know, not even surprising, just confusing to me.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say because like I didn't forget that part. Mm-hmm. So like, it's interesting to hear like that perspective, because I don't really remember what I felt like the first time I read it, but like that perspective of not knowing that it's Two-Face, that reveal. So
yeah, I was like wondering where this is going. Like, where is it going? Like, like obviously she's being framed here. Obviously she didn't commit these crimes. Obviously, or did she? Like, you never know. And the whole time they were kind of playing this angle that it was about this other guy that she had helped convict or something, trying to get revenge. And I thought, there would be more connective tissue there between the Two-Face thing. And then by the time Two-Face, I guess, breaks her off of like the prison bus or something like that, and then is like having this like awkward kidnapped style romantic dinner with her, and like tries to convince her that like she should be in love with him, or like that kind of scene. I started losing the plot a little bit during those pages, and I was like, I know this is going to circle back around to her being exonerated, and I had that, gut feeling, but like the whole Two-Face issue, which I guess is the last issue, was the weakest for me.
Yeah.
But the end of it, I thought, wasn't weak. The end of it, the whole resolution was strong, but the first half of the last issue was my weakest part.
I felt like, to a certain degree, I felt like they were telling this story, and it's about this thug that she tried to get convicted for rape that's like got off, and he's like trying to get revenge on her.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we can't really make him the villain of this. We have to make a Batman villain the villain of this.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like they shoehorned him in, like, unnecessarily. Like, I don't know.
Oh, this hasn't been a Batman book for too long. We need to remind you that's a Batman book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he did come in and he tied a bunch of people up. He saved the day and made, basically made it so that Two-Face is back in Arkham at the end of the story, right?
I mean, half an issue out of 10 issues that you had a problem with is pretty good.
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I just think that whole reveal was just poorly set up.
Sure. Yeah,
I agree.
That's fair.
Storytelling within this. Now, maybe they set up the Montoya Two-Face thing previously.
Yeah, and again, I don't remember, but like,
So that's the part I'm wondering.
You should be able to pick this up and not have to read 40 issues of Batman.
I agree. I mean, they were referencing certain things, like her being there for him in some capacity, of which I don't know what that was, right? So, I am curious just to read Brubaker's Batman now, for sure, 100%. Like, even if there's no strong connective tissue, because I have not read that. So I did pick up the trade during a Black Friday sale or whatever thing. So I'm definitely gonna read that.
I would agree. I'm definitely like want to read the rest of this. I want to read the rest of I want to read the Brubaker run again. Some of it I think I've read before, but like reread that because it is really good. Like, it's really good. I just felt like the Two-Face thing to me was just like, we need a Batman villain. And it was like, no, you don't. You're telling an excellent story without.
Yeah. And I mean, again, even if it was set up in a Batman title, like if you're reading this, even when it first came out and you weren't reading Batman or you weren't reading Detective, whichever one it was set up in, like, you should be able to pick this up and not have that problem. So it's a valid criticism.
Yeah.
So
Brubaker's Daredevil is solid. I was talking about that before we started.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, Ruben, what's going on?
A
few more people that popped in here. Ruben jumped in. Let's see. Biggie's been in here for a while. Burke family jumped in. What's going on, Burke? Big Lion Cat, J Hood. I think
Unruly says maybe editorial made them put Harvey in there. It's quite possible.
36 Chambers. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, certainly an editor might have been like I kind of made the joke of like being, oh, this hasn't been a Batman book in too long. So,
to me, that's what it felt like. It felt like they got to a point, they were telling a story, and they're like, wait, you went 4 issues and we haven't seen Batman or one of his villains in Gotham? We got to fix that.
We need one.
Yeah, we got to fix that. I do kind of feel like that's what happened. Like, to me, that would make more sense than that they decided to do it that way.
Yeah.
Right.
So, anything else about the stories before we kind of move on to start wrapping this up? Any other highlights or points you guys want to make?
No, but the story makes me want to see and maybe they're out there and I'm just not aware of them. It makes me want to see and read more stories like that. Like, I want a whole like Daily Bugle like comic where it's
awesome.
where it's just that, where it's just the day in, day out of getting after the stories, like reporters you don't know, mixing up with the reporters maybe you do know, or like you just hear of the reporters you do know. You know what I mean? I would love that, dude. Let me write it. You know, I don't think that series exists. As a Spider-Man fan, I want to read it. You know?
Yeah. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, there may have been like a one-off here or there.
Yeah, but you can take that same concept.
There have been 40 issues.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I would agree that I think those kind of things, telling stories about real people trying to work and do things in these universes where these heroes and villains exist, I think is been a missed opportunity by both Marvel and DC. I think there's some fantastic stories they could tell. I mean, they've done some stuff. They've tried to do some things with like the cleanup crews, and I forget what that one is called. Like, I
know what you're talking about though.
I can't think of the name of that now, but and they've done this. But
Damage Incorporated. Damage Control.
Damage Control. Yeah. And I feel like they need to do. I think there's a lot there. Probably they didn't sell well enough, and so they haven't tried it again. But I feel like they could tell some real. You get the right writers on these, and you can tell some fantastic stories that way.
Yeah. But you're right. It's about sales, and a book about Batman sells better than a book about Batman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it's true.
So cover.
Well, yeah, I mean.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, this is one of the first time reads, you know, like that we've done on this show. Like, I think a lot of them, except maybe the White Knight was the other first time read.
White Knight,
at least it was for me, and I loved that one too. And that was like more Elseworlds or whatever. But this one got me interested in like the lore around it, the time period of Batman, just everything, because that was when I was out of comics.
Completely. Me too.
So completely out. So this is brand new for me. So I'm glad we got to wrap our heads around this.
Four made a comment earlier that he thought it would be about Gordon and Bullock and
right. That was my assumption too.
That was my assumption because I had forgotten that during this period Gordon had retired, and I'd forgotten this part of because I was out.
He was in it for like 5 pages, getting an award and giving a speech.
And I think Bullock had been like disgraced from the force or something. Like he wasn't.
He wasn't in it at all. He was just talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it was kind of more interesting that it was just like wasn't about the Batman cops. It's about the actual police force.
Yeah.
For sure. I like
not about these established characters that you've known for 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, the only one that's slightly established is
Renee
Montoya. And then technically Sawyer had been established in Superman books because she'd been a cop in Metropolis before she went to Gotham. But she's not really, at least in this volume, she's just kind of a minor background character.
Yeah, she's there.
Yeah. And so no, I am super intrigued. I will definitely be trying to read the rest of this. So
yeah, I'm gonna add the next trade to my next IST.
Nice. I'm glad I didn't lead you guys astray.
No. So covers. We always do a thing. Your favorite cover from this run. I
had a hard time with this.
These covers are not strong. In my opinion.
I mean, I guess I lean more towards the ones with Montoya just because I identified with, or not even identified with her story. I connected with her story because I just felt more drawn in by the Montoya covers. I do like this one of her alone in the prison cell. I guess I like that one, but I think the one with her with the gun is probably my personal favorite. So the one with her with the gun, or for me, I just like the simplicity of this one. That's a cool one.
With her at the phone booth in the rain,
I don't know if this one's my favorite, but I'll pick a different one.
Yeah. I like this one too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
I would definitely say the covers with Montoya were way stronger than the covers in the first half.
Yeah.
I like this. It's funny because when you look at something as a cover and as an illustration, sometimes they kind of feel different, right?
Right. I would agree with that.
And this one, even if that were a splash page in a book, you'd be like, "Oh, that's awesome."
Yeah.
But as a cover, it's not as dynamic as maybe we're used to. But I still like
the first set of covers. All feel like they should have been would have been really great splash pages or panels in the story, but weren't quite covers.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
I mean, this is the Montoya one I didn't necessarily like.
No,
because
that's another great illustration.
That is a great one. That's a cool.
But
like,
it's not. It doesn't like. It's like, oh, it's a guy
cop interrogation. It puts you right there.
But as a cover, it's not like, oh, what's going to happen in this issue? It's just like, oh, that's cool looking, but I don't know. Yeah. It doesn't have that air of. I mean, at least that one with her with Two-Face that you just showed. It's not my favorite illustration, but at least it's like, oh, what's happening in that book?
Right. I don't think there's like a clear runaway favorite like there are in like Black Mirror. You have like two incredible Jock covers that have become iconic.
Like,
you know.
I really like that one.
Is that number one? Or?
Yeah. But it doesn't. It's looked different.
Well, that's technically that's number one, I guess.
Yeah, that's technically.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's. I mean, I think that's a pretty good cover.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I did a little bit of precursory research on that. It's not a like sought after comic book. It's not a it's not a book people slab. I think there are 20 Gotham Central #1s on the census, and like its fair market value is like $22, which is less than the cost of slabbing.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, so I get it's not a collector's book. More so, I guess it's a reader book. You know,
you can find the issues in 50-cent bins if you want to hunt them all down. But
yeah, I might want to.
Me too. Yeah, I am definitely tempted to like.
It's only 40 books too, so it's not like it's huge.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not a big run collector.
No, in general, I had a run because I was buying it when it came out, and I sold it at some point because I said, this is something I'd rather own in trades personally, but.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I
would agree with that. If I run into them, for like.
I mean, if I
nothing,
run for like a full run for $10 or something.
Yeah. Oh, really?
So if you did, like, you saw it at a con, like someone's like, they have those big tables with just nothing but runs, and they're like, yes, $10-15 for 40 issues of Gotham Central. Like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I can see doing that.
Yeah, I can see doing that.
Otherwise, I'll probably just stick with this.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get the second trade. I don't know if I go straight to getting all the rest of the trades right away, but
I do the second and then see again. But
it's good all the way through. But nice. I mean, I would never recommend buying like all the trades at once of anything.
Yeah, I usually do one volume at a time.
Agree with that. Hey TJ, thanks for coming in as we're wrapping up here.
Hello, what's up, TJ?
Stream's coming, so you have other stuff to watch. But he always gets mad at me because I'm going off. It seems like every time when he like.
Unruly's asking if it's the same creative team throughout for like the rest of the book. Is it?
I forget if Michael Lark did the whole thing, but Brubaker and Rucka definitely, I'm pretty sure, wrote the whole thing.
So the writing team's intact. The whole
writing team's intact.
Although I don't remember if they both did the whole thing or if Brubaker took over at some point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I still find that whole thing about them splitting up the shifts, and that's how they divvied up the writing. I just find that so fascinating because I've never heard of that type of approach. Barbarian, what's up?
Hey, Barbarian. So, where do you guys like this? I mean, we talked about a little bit at the beginning of it's not really a Batman book, but it is a Gotham book, and Batman does make an appearance. So, how would you rank this in terms of favorite Gotham / Batman stories? Who wants to go first? You both seem very enthusiastic.
Yeah, for me, like, I consider it a Batman book. I would say it goes like Year One and Long Halloween is my top 2, and then this is like somewhere in the top 5 for sure.
Nice. I mean, I guess because we have 2 different rating systems, like where we have it overall, and then where we have it in the 10 episodes that we have done, right?
Sure, right.
So, I would probably have it number 7, maybe, of the 10 that we've done. And that's all I really know. I don't know where to put it. I've only read it once. Haven't read the rest of the story. I've only read this volume. So it's a little bit hard. It's a little bit hard for me to like put it in that where it ranks my all time until I finish the rest of the story. So I would say probably put it 7, maybe 8, arguably 6. You know, if it depends on what I'm not feeling that day or whatever of the other 9 that we've done. You know, I think you know, Mad Love is definitely at the bottom of the list for me. You know, followed by The Killing Joke. So you know, I put it somewhere in that 6-7 range for me, I guess.
And for anybody looking, that's not my order of how they rank. That's
right. That's the order of what episodes we've done.
For me, it definitely goes ahead of. There's several of them that we've done that it would definitely go ahead of, like Mad Love, Killing Joke, A Death in the Family. I'm not a huge fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that's probably where I have it. It's like those are the 3
I would put it
behind it. Yeah,
I don't know that I would bump it ahead of any of the others, like Year One. I definitely wouldn't go ahead of Year One or The Long Halloween or White Knight.
No.
I would put it, you know, in that range though of like Black Mirror or Hush or The Court of Owls. I think those are all kind of. It's in the ballpark, but probably just below for me.
Same.
Now I've only read this once. I've read almost all of those multiple times. So staying power becomes part of it. But yeah, I would say probably in that 6 range of what we've done, and probably on the edge of the top 10 just of my all-time, like counting of other stuff, like in the top 10, probably just barely.
Right. I need to finish the rest of it to sort of give it a rank of my all-time Batman or Gotham stories. But
PJ with the puns.
But I have it at a solid 7. Like you know, I have the same 3 books below it: Mad Love, Killing Joke, and Death in the Family. So I have it solidly there at 7 for me right now. The ones that we've done, but all of those 7, I'm a big fan of. It's number 8, 9, and 10 in the ones that we've done where I've had the most issues. So
yeah, I mean, you have to remember like the other stuff I prefer to read too, like
right.
So for me, this kind of goes higher because it's the type of story I like reading more than like more superhero-y stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense. So I would agree with that. So, well,
so where would you put it? Like, where would you put it in a vacuum, like out of 10?
In a vacuum, out of 10, just straight rating this story, I put it like 8.5, maybe.
Yeah, I think like
that's where I have it.
8.5.
Right. I'll give it like a
if I was giving it a CGC grade, it would be an 8.5 white pages.
It'd be like a 91.2 PGX.
Right. There you go.
No, I'll give it like around a 9. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
I mean, it's an 8.5. I'm sticking with that. Like an 8 to a 9. It's right there in that range for me.
I mean, if you just flat out ask me, like, do you recommend reading this book? I highly recommend reading it.
It would be certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. We've just covered so many good Batman stories that I'm a big fan of to start out this show because we're familiar with it. Yeah.
So
you're excited to read the good ones.
Yeah.
So we've hit a lot of the highlights as we've done this. So
we've been purposefully avoiding Dark Knight Returns, I think.
Yeah. You got to do Dark Knight 3, the Masterclass, or whatever.
Oh God, I still haven't even read that because I've just been avoiding it in general.
Yeah. Looks like hot garbage.
Yeah.
I didn't even like the second one, so.
I don't know. I didn't guess.
Strikes again, or whatever, that one. Yeah, not good. Great.
Has Biggie actually even read this, or is he?
I don't know if Biggie's read it or not.
I don't know.
No, you called us jerks. I mean, that's
good. Jerks. Comic Head wants to do Earth One. Well, that is one of the ones that I picked up recently. So.
Yeah, I have the trade also.
So it is on our list, Comic Head. So we'll have to talk to you about that. I know we got a couple people lined out for some other stuff too.
But I added. I was at Midtown and they were still yesterday picking up my new books because I was out of town. And I didn't go, on Wednesday, and they were having the sale, and I grabbed this Ed Brubaker Batman Volume 1 trade just because I read this book. So
I think that's why we call us jerks, is because we keep putting off doing Dark Knight.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
Biggie says Dark Knight is like Freebird at this point. Everyone's just calling to be always requesting it from the crowd, but you just keep ignoring it.
He didn't read it.
So. Well, Alec, I know you have places to be and shows to do here in a minute. Thank you for joining us, man.
Thanks for inviting me, guys. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, it was fun.
So, upcoming, before we get to shout outs, I think, like I said, I think the next one we're planning to do is Harleen, probably, like right after.
When's that coming out?
Like December 18th, so it'll probably be like right after the first of the year before we do it.
Okay.
Because it's the week
That's
before.
like the holidays, yeah.
With the holidays and stuff. I don't know. We'll have to talk about it. And then after that, I think the next one in line after that
is that the date it got pushed back to, or is that the original date? Okay.
And then after that, I think we got McD and The Boy Who Had Seven lined up to do Under the Red Hood, which this thing is a beast.
Oh, geez, I got to start reading that now then.
And then I think after that, Comic Head, Earth One.
Cool. Down with that.
I read all of this between last night and today, so.
Yeah.
Nice. So for me, it was interesting because, I read this whole book while in traveling scenarios. So on trains, in the back of cabs, in the back of the car with my family and whatnot over Thanksgiving. So like I was in constant sort of movement while reading this story, and that kind of almost helped the vibe of the story or whatever. I had New York City like as my backdrop while reading this story. It was very appropriate. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Biggie said he didn't read it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, well, you guys got anything you want to pitch before you get off of here?
Yeah, on Comic Core channel Wednesday nights, we got the greatest comic book show ever now, with me and John and Bear Island and Comics Misexplained. A lot of fun. We just joke around and act like idiots. And then, as opposed to my other show, which is called New Comic Book Day Book Club, where it's John and myself and a guest, and we act like idiots. So
there you go. You don't have anything else coming up tonight?
Right after this on the Boy Who Had Seven's channel, John and myself, I can't get away from that guy. We are participating in the first 12 Days of Christmas. I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but
he's been promoting it, so
okay. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if the guests were announced, but I posted it.
I thought it was on the little thumbnail he had.
Oh, probably. You're right. So I didn't mess anything up.
There you go.
I got a contest entry video to do between now and December 6th. That I know that will be released, but other than that, I think the next thing I have is also on the Boy Who Had Seven's channel. A week from today, JP and I will also be on.
Yeah, we will be next Monday on Matt's channel for 12 Days of Christmas. Yes, contest ends on Friday, so get your entries in if you want to win prizes and also get other people to win prizes. All you have to do is go to the video up from November 1st and put in 1 to 3 people that you are thankful for in this comic community. You enter them into a drawing. You enter yourself into a drawing to win prizes, or you can make a video and then you get 3 entries doing the same thing. So that ends on Friday. And then Top 10 will be back on Saturday, and I'm going to try to get a Let's Collect out this week, but we'll see. So sometimes that may or may not happen. So.
I'm also working on something else that I'll just say it's going to take me 30 days to do it. If I can stay, regimented enough and everything, and I can do it for 30 days.
Is this like a weight loss or weight gain challenge?
Negative,
you do the weight gain challenge. I'll do the weight loss challenge.
It's comic book related.
All right, cool. Great. I'm very intrigued.
There was not Gray Matter. I took the Thanksgiving week off. I hung out with family. I decided not to mess with the top 10 this last week. So I did skip a week. That is only the second week I've skipped since I started doing it. So I don't feel too bad about it. And I will be back. I've already started on the one for this week, getting information together. So
nice.
I don't know. Did I miss something? You tried?
I'm sure I screwed something up, and I tried.
All right, well, let's get you out of here, so we're not making Matt
dinner
late.
time for me.
And NYC can actually get some dinner. So Thanks everybody for watching, and we will.
Thanks, guys.
Catch
Hey,
you later.
everybody.
Bye.